So how exciting is this? Here I am in Hermosa Beach, otherwise known as Los Angeles, and the sun's pouring in behind me here. Um, so you'll just have to see me the way you see me here with the sun all over. And I'd love to, first of all, shout out to Dr. Sarah McHugh for introducing us. She talks super highly of all three of you, and I totally respect her for a lot of reasons, and she's a joy to be around and everything. So the expectations are very high for you guys right here now, and because she's going to see it, and so you're going to hear from her and stuff. No, it's super exciting that she did that. And best way to start is if you can all each briefly introduce yourself, and don't tell the whole story, and then we have nothing left to talk about. Just briefly, so where are you from? Where are you now? The family, a little bit about you, and then we'll hit it. So who volunteers to start?
I can go first.
Go for it.
Hello, everybody. My name is Shanita Ray. I currently live in DC. I've been living in DC for almost 7 years now. I am originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I went to school there throughout my entire life, Marquette, undergrad, grad, and got my PhD from University of Wisconsin-Madison. Currently, I work for Georgetown University School of Continuing Studies as the Vice Dean of Education and Faculty Affairs.
Awesome. Anything else about your family? Do you
have? I have a great mom. Oh, check this out. So my mother, she is a raw vegan chef. And when I lived in Milwaukee, this was probably over 10 years ago, we actually had a cooking show on public television called Cooking Raw. So we showed primarily people living in the Milwaukee area how to make raw dishes just using fresh fruits and nuts and seeds and vegetables. So that's one personal note about myself.
That's awesome. So you got into the health mode, before it was like a trend.
That's right. I think we were trendsetters.
Way
for sure.
Can you tell that, everybody? That was awesome. Thank you. So Mayana, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So hi, everyone. My name is Mayana Kamara. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, but I grew up in Sierra Leone, West Africa. And I was there till about the age of 10, right before the war broke out between Sierra Leone and Liberia. And then I came here to New Jersey, been here ever since. Got my bachelor's in industrial engineering from NJIT, and I currently work for BSF. I am a mother to 2 kids who I have firmly instructed to not come down even for a drink of water while I'm doing this. And yeah, on my spare time, I enjoy playing video games and just relaxing and just, not doing anything that has to do with work. So that's who I am.
They don't have social services on speed dial, do they? Parlez-vous français?
No, actually, no. We so Sierra Leone was actually colonized by well, the name was found by a Portugal guy, and then it was also colonized by British. So we speak Creole, which is broken English, but not the Creole that Haitians speak, which is broken French. So it sounds very similar to English.
Wow.
Super, super cool. Well, thanks for that. And last but certainly not least, Bryce.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bryce General. I'm originally from the South. I'm from Atlanta. I studied in the South for undergrad. I went to Auburn University. And I moved to the DC area in 2014. I currently am an analyst at Cox Communications. I've been doing that about 5 years. I recently got my master's from American University, so just very excited about what's next for me. In my spare time, I have twin boys. They're 14.
Wow.
Thankfully, they are in different practices right now, so they are not going to be running in, asking for dinner, anything of that nature. But yeah, I love to read. I paint. I also have a art business, so an abstract art business. So that kind of evens me out. It keeps me nice and calm, and so that's what I like to do in my spare time.
Well, you know what they say, I got 3 boys, but they're in their 20s. You know, they say um, about when Jay Leno used to say about 14, you know, that's when they start to know everything, like everything. And I spoke to another executive this morning, a woman, she said, "You're telling me about her kids." And she said, "Yeah, my 13-year-old apparently now knows everything," type, you know. And Jay Leno used to say, "You can understand, at the age of 13 and 14, your kids basically get abducted by aliens." And then time goes on, and around 19, 20, 21, they actually bring them back and you recognize them as they were before. So you just got to accept that and go from there. So, but as for kids walking in, one thing COVID's taught us is we don't have to take ourselves so seriously. If kids walk in or dogs walk in or whatever, welcome to life. This is like get over it, right? So
I agree.
not a big deal. Where people used to go, "Oh my God, no, we can't give you."
That's the best part of Zoom calls when kids just show up randomly.
It's actually even better. So
Yeah.
you gotta chill a little bit, and maybe they have something important to say too. A lot of times. So thanks for the introductions. You know, what we've always found is personal experience from many things often motivate us in a certain direction. Whether it's in health and wellness or education or something that gets us triggered sometimes because of a personal experience to get involved in something. When did you each discover, you know, that famous why? When did you each discover your why and why you do what you do now? So we'll start the other way now. Bryce.
So I think that finding your why is kind of like a never ending kind of journey. In my case, it definitely has been. So when we're discussing maybe the equity, the D&I part of it, I was raised in a very multicultural kind of environment always. My mother was she was very thoughtful in the school she's placed me in, right? And so she was like, "I want your school to look like the world." She's originally from DC. So for her, it mattered, right? And so my friends have always been very, very diverse. But I noticed as I got older, my diverse kind of thought processes weren't some of my other friends' norm, right? And so I was like, I want to be able to have the conversations that I have with my friends. I want everybody to have them, right? Because it leads to a lot more understanding about what's going on, what people want, why they want it. But I think the thing that's helped me like nail it down is that people just want to be seen and they want to be heard. Everybody has the same kind of 2 things, right? And so for me, my why is still on its path. I don't think I've discovered it, but I know that I love having those kind of cultural conversations with people and figuring out kind of what they're thinking and why they are doing the things they do.
So you have a wandering why. Is that
Yes.
it?
Yes, mine is not pinned down.
No, that's awesome. Mayanna?
I will really want to start off with, you know, kind of similar to what Bryce said. My upbringing was also, I wouldn't say it was really diverse because, you know, Africa, predominantly everyone there is Black, you know. It wasn't until I came to the US that I actually recognized that I was an African American woman. And the reason why is because I guess you can say it was very distinct to know that, okay, I wasn't around everyone that was the same color as myself, right? However, I was fortunate enough to go to a school that was also very diverse. So coming from a high school with diverse people and then going to a college that was predominantly filled with males, again, that's another interesting environment where you're the only woman in class, you know, so I experienced that as well. And then now that I'm beginning to emerge into this space, I would really say the beginning of my why started when I volunteered to be the site chair for our African American employee group at BSF. It's something that I was reluctant to do because I really don't like speaking in public, but I'm glad I did that because it began to scratch in me what has already been taking place since birth, if you think about it, since I was little, growing up in Africa, growing up in New Jersey, going to NJIT, and now working for a German company, and then now being asked to be the lead for this organization. So I would say that's really where my why started. And yeah, it's just like Bryce, it's still going. So I'm picking it up and building upon it day by day.
No, super cool. It's a great distinction you make. You know, first of all, color and a woman, and
Mhm.
which we should never forget, because they both have their challenges, just each individually too, and stuff. And being from a place where when you came here, that's fascinating, but not a surprise, where all of a sudden you realized you were,
Yeah.
which is probably something most people don't experience actually here. So super cool. Shanita?
Yeah, so I mean, I think some of the things that Mayanna and Bryce said really connect to my own personal upbringing. So similar to our moms, she decided that she wanted to make sure that I was exposed to a variety of cultures, a variety of backgrounds, and so early on in my educational upbringing, she decided to transfer me out of like a public schools where there was predominantly Black people and people of color to a predominantly white area where I was the only Black person often in my classes. And so, I understand the rationale for wanting to do that, but I always felt that it was important for me to create environments where everybody felt comfortable, independent of who they are, where they are. And so I think that helped to begin to form the beginning of my why is how do I make sure that no matter where you come from, that you always feel, people around me always feel like they are part of a community, that they're seen and they're heard, and their background is just as valuable and important as everybody else's background. So that's one piece. I think the other piece is higher ed. Higher ed is really my second career. I have a background in finance and IT. That's the path I thought I was going to be on after I graduated from Marquette. I worked for GE for a number of years. And in one of my second roles at GE, I was a Six Sigma Black belt. So all that means is that I got to work with people across the business to help them figure out how to improve their operations. And that role was really time bound. So after a couple years or 2 or 3 years, you should be thinking about what you want to do next. And my manager at the time, he said, Shanita, he's this white guy, 6'2", red hair. He's like, Shanita, we're almost at the end of this role for you. What do you want to do next? And I honestly told him, I said, I really don't know. I don't know what I want to do. And he suggested that I read this book called What Color's Your Parachute? Written in the 1970s, I believe. But it's essentially a book about helping you find a career that gives you meaning, that brings you joy and happiness in your life. And so I don't remember all that book. That was 20 plus years ago. But there was one thing in it that I remember, and it was to think about where do you find the most happiness and joy in your environment? So like what spaces do bring you the most happiness and joy? And the first thing that came to mind was higher ed, college. I love college. Like I never wanted to graduate. I was one of the few people in my friend group who said I never wanted to leave. And so so I decided to change my career around and pursue that route. But to your question about how you find your why, sometimes somebody from the outside, right, helps you find that path. And I credit my manager from GE who recommended that I read this book to help me understand the importance of finding something that you have meaning, or that gives you meaning, that makes you feel joy and happiness in the work that you do.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you later about influencers, but because we've all had them, and you kind of pointed out how important they are right there. By the way, there's also a book called Man's Search for Meaning.
Okay.
It's an older book, and I guess it was revisited or republished and whatnot. It's an amazing story, in this case, about a Jewish guy, Holocaust, but way beyond that, of how to get meaning out of anything and stuff. So I'm not getting royalties on recommending this, but it's a good book. So at some point I'd love to share, similar stories that even I've had being Jewish, not as bad as because I'm white, but even in that sense. So, but moving on, you've all been obviously clearly involved in DEI, the evolving world over the last decades of DEI and personal experience and leadership roles and as you're sharing now, feeling the impact and making a difference in the organizations and communities that you're in, where you work, where you live, type of thing. Could each of you share a little bit, some of your whole story, some of the experiences you've had, basically, with respect to how it shaped your thoughts of what DEI even should be or is, and how it's impacted you. So maybe we'll go with Mayana first.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. When I think about DNI, I mean, this is even what it stands for, diversity, equity, and inclusion. They all stand for something different, but they're all together. And in order for it to work, they all have to work together, right? So I would say for me, that's always been a reality to me, making sure that I am surrounding myself with diverse people. I am surrounding myself with diverse friends. Even listening to someone's opinion on or hearing their background or taking the time to understand, where they're from, what languages speak. That is DE and I. You know what I mean? So when it comes to the role that is played in my life personally and even from work, I will say the George Floyd incident really began to shape it for me. It's always been a reality for me, but it became loud around that time. And when it became loud around that time, something that I experienced actually from work, we were given the opportunity to share our stories on a phone calls, and it was basically a listening tour that our upper management did, and I really commend them for doing that because it allowed us to share some of the experiences that they had no idea about, what it takes to come to work, meaning that sometimes as African American, you do have to put on a face before you enter that building. When you walk on the floor and you see that, everyone sitting behind a glass door does not look like you, right? And just being able to share with them things that were happening that they were not aware of. So for me, that was really the awakening in my spirit that's always been there, but really the awakening also for America that needed to happen. And now that we're in that space, it's given us room to really express ourselves, but also find constructive ways about how we can actually begin to heal the wound. So that's just an experience that I want to share is how we did it at work and how it really shaped me personally and also professionally as well.
So Sunita, do you have other experiences you've had that have done the same?
Yeah. And to piggyback a little bit on that, about what should DEI be, I think it's something that we should all be responsible for. Sometimes, DEI is kind of labeled as something that the chief diversity officer manages, or, these kind of isolated islands. And I'm like, no, this should be woven into the fabric of our strategic planning, how we do our business, and how we lead our organizations. And so, throughout my career, education, I have never been like in an assigned DEI role, like never. But every role that I've had, I've kind of gravitated to that work. And I remember a story specifically when I was working at the University of Wisconsin-Platteville. I don't know if all know where Platteville is, but it is in a very small, very small town in the southwest corner of the state of Wisconsin. So we're very close to Iowa. I was working at University of Wisconsin-Platteville for about 6 years. And when I was there, I was the associate director for the Distance Learning Center. So again, nothing related to DEI. And so during my tenure, the university hired a new president. And when the new president came on board, there was like a series of like racial incidents that was happening across the campus. And like at the time I had been at the university for maybe like 5 years, and I had never seen anything like that before, like ever. And so I remember that the new president at the time decided to have like this open forum where he invited people across the university and the community to come talk about like, why is this happening now? And this is circa 2010. Why is this happening now? Like, what has changed in our community? And I decided to go to that open forum, and I listened for the most part. And what I heard was from everybody, my white people, Black people, Asian, Hispanic, Latino, like all kind of saying that they see these things happening in our community, but they don't necessarily know what to do about it. And that was a little shocking to me, that, you know, people who see acts of discrimination or bias happen, but they don't necessarily know how to remedy that or address it. And so after that event, I went home, wrote up this 3-page proposal about like how the university could address this. I sent it to the chief of staff. The chief of staff sent it to the president, and I was called in the office and asked to execute on this strategy. And so that's when it became real for me, is like when I was asked to, you know, put into action this idea that I had about essentially organizing a Midwestern conference around DE&I in this small town, Platteville, to address what we could do individually and collectively in terms of being proactive and, you know, being active in terms of like our responses to, you know, acts that we see that we think are wrong, but then also how do we mitigate these acts from happening in the future?
No, that's brilliant. And Bryce, I imagine you have experiences too that have led you in that direction. And I'm sure, I guess you can relate to both Mayana and Shanita. Can you share any of yours?
Sure. So the same as Shanita, in the way that having a diverse set of friends allows you to have uncomfortable conversations. And I, going to Auburn for undergrad, right? Being African-American was every now and again, right? It was very sparse, right? And so in my major, it was me. I mean, I can count less than 5 people in my major that were African-American. But that allowed me to meet so many different kinds of people, right? But it was so funny. So over time, my friend group has kind of evolved to have friends from the Midwest, to have friends from New York, of all different kinds of, have friends from the South, different religions, different beliefs, right? And it's so funny, my closest core group is 6 of us. And in that group, there's an Asian woman, there's a woman from the Midwest, there's a woman from up north, there's one of my best friends is from Atlanta, never has left, right? So it's always like mixture of ideas, right? But us all having so much in common and really liking each other, right? And so and really not just liking, but really caring for each other in a deep way, right? And so as things would happen in a community, it was like asking them, hey, like, what is that about, right? Why do you feel that way? What is, and beginning to understand we all wanted the same things, right? We wanted our kids to be safe. We wanted to have financial means if possible. We didn't want to be judged for our belief. It was all these things we want to just be, right? We want to be seen, and we don't want to be felt like our beliefs are less than, right? And so when I got the opportunity at work to sit on, to be an ambassador for Virginia for my company, it was so shocking because you realize people don't have diverse sets of friends, right? And so when we were having these conversations, it was like, what do you mean you've never had a conversation with a white person about X, Y, and Z, right? And they were like, I never had. And these were people that were 30 plus years old. And it was like, okay, so how do we get there, right? How do we have, and it's about everybody having the willingness to have the uncomfortable conversations. And that's what DE&I has done for me. But the other part to that for me is it has highlighted the socioeconomic issues that people face, that people kind of try to break it into race. But a lot of times you get to talking to people, it's about just trying to make it to the next day, right? No matter what color they are, right? It's like, okay. So there's so much DE&I to explore. And I've just enjoyed getting to know people and getting to understand what they need. It just has helped me just look at life from a whole different view.
It's a great point. I think, I grew up in Montreal, which is a fairly diverse city, and we never had to say we need diversity, we just knew diversity was great, type of thing, for all the reasons. Even as kids, we kind of knew it. But it's still, first of all, it's also still not as many Black people in Canada as the US, obviously, but still, I mean, I coached the hockey team that the media picked up on. It was called the UN hockey team. It was 13 and 14-year-olds that were teaching the parents how to be, basically, because they were just together to be, whoever they were. But it's fascinating because in business with Fifth Element, we work with a lot of different clients. We have certain programs like Nonflict is a program we have, which is a great name for a program. And it's part of that whole program is absolutely, number one, that conflict doesn't mean you hate the person, just means you have different ideas, and it's actually a good thing. To your points about the diverse mindsets even, and also absolutely make sure that the other person really does believe you heard them, like for real, not just like a salesman who's listening and then is selling right away and didn't have any and listen. The other thing, we're also working with an organization in the Middle East called Eco Peace Middle East, where the Palestinians and Israelis and Jordanians are actually working together on, it's like economic interdependence on water and agriculture. And that has helped bring people together because of economic interdependence. So it brings me back to what you were saying, and I'll go to Shanita on this one. You were saying, Bryce, I'd like to know more about what your thoughts are about those uncomfortable conversations, because I think not only sometimes people don't know, but there's also, as you said, they're busy with their day job to make it through, to get distracted, to have an uncomfortable conversation, and also, unfortunately, ignore it. Just ignore it. Well, it's not my problem, type of thing, or whatever. So Shanita, and then we'll go on with others. What are your thoughts to invite someone into an uncomfortable conversation and to get trust to be able to do that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Can you share your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think it takes a lot of things, but two that jump to the top of my mind is, first, it takes a lot of courage to have those conversations and to be honest, right? I mean, because you are sensitive to maybe folks not having a lot of experience talking about these things, and not having a lot of knowledge about historical implications. So having courage is a component of it, but then also taking the initiative to reach out to people to start those conversations, because a lot of times people are not going to volunteer to do it. And, I think our colleague, our professor, our friend, Dr. McHugh, like what she did is a model of that, right? We didn't know each other before Sarah sent this random email to say, hey, I know 4 fabulous people, 3 Black women and 1 white man. You know what? I think that you guys could do something together. So figure it out. And so yeah, go Sarah. And so we need more champions like that. We didn't know what this would turn out into, but because of her, disparate, the relationship she has with a lot of different people, she says, let's bring folks from, different geographic backgrounds, different professional backgrounds, different age groups, different, ways of thinking together to have those conversations. And so, more of that needs to happen, because we can't just rely on one leader or one person. We all, again, have to be responsible for facilitating and encouraging these conversations.
And why would you want to eat a hamburger 7 days a week type of deal,
That's exactly what I'm saying.
You want to taste something else, don't you? I mean, I could eat pizza almost 6 days a week, actually, but I mean, if you want to eat something else. So Mayanna, maybe you can expand on that a little bit, and maybe even add to it where you've got to have some feeling of trust. You got to have the courage, but also some feeling of trust with the other person that's maybe initiating it, or trust that you can initiate it and it won't. And if you make a mistake, it won't be a problem. Bring it out, Mayanna.
Right. Yeah. Just to add on what Shanita said as well, I think it's important, before you can even have a conversation with someone about an uncomfortable topic, you yourself have to learn how to be uncomfortable with that topic. And what I mean by that is, you have to also make sure you spot check your heart and see, how will I respond to a question if it was asked this way? How would I respond if someone was to say Black versus African American? So you have to also be willing to be uncomfortable and be able to identify where the triggers are and address those before you can even approach someone else. I think when it comes to trust, people watch. People know when you're genuine.
Yeah.
People know when you're just doing it for the paycheck, or if you're just doing it to meet KPIs, right? So you have to gain people's trust by you actually being the example of what you're asking them to be. So your actions speak louder than words. I think that's how you develop trust.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's also, I would tell my kids when they were younger, one of them would say, do you know this rapper? Let's say, do you know this rapper so-and-so? And I'd say, no. And if you don't know who that is, and I said, you're making me feel like an idiot. I don't know who that is. There's going to be a time, I told them, when I'm going to ask them about something and they won't know. And do you want me to say, you're an idiot? You don't know who that is? And I think it's funny. But to your point, it's really important that the person, doesn't get hit right away with, how do you not know what happened? How do you know not this and whatever on all sides? Otherwise, you do feel bad, would be an understatement, So how do you all feel about then? We have a lot of clients that have, ERGs, employee resource groups, and the intent of them clearly was authentic for most people, I would hope, that to have a safe space to go or whatnot. But there are pros and cons. Some people say it's very inclusive, but then other people say maybe it's getting too exclusive or whatnot. I'd just love to hear all your thoughts about that. And maybe Bryce, why don't you start?
Yes. So being as I said before, being an ambassador, my echo,
No, you're good.
I'm echoing on mine. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hear me?
Being an ambassador for my company, what I found was the outreach to other groups wasn't what I thought it was going to be. It was a lot about African-American people in the company getting together. And the thing that's so shocking about it is a lot of African-American people don't know about their African-American or African history, right? So it was a lot of events around educating people about their own to do, right? It wasn't really the outreach I thought it was going to be. We got together a couple of times with, we have a group that is for Asian Americans. Then we got together with the Latin community, and we got together with the LGBTQ plus, I think it's AI group. So we got together kind of randomly, but it wasn't diverse. It was very, we're going to talk about Black issues over here, because it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, the ERG. But even in that, there was so much to learn, right? Because back to the socioeconomic part, there's those things, right? There's we had a big thing on Kwanzaa. We had a big thing on the initiative of Return to Ghana, right? So even though you are African-American, there's so many things you don't know that are happening around you in your own community. So that's what ours was more focused on. It wasn't as focused on being diverse. My experience wasn't that.
Yeah, so if I go to Mayana now, it's a great point, and I think that comes up a lot, what you just said, Bryce, about even Americans don't know everything that happened, and it's sometimes not necessarily their fault. It's not either being taught, or who knows what the reasons are, or they're lazy, or a combination of both. And it happens a lot where people say things and they declare this is right, and yet they don't know until maybe it happens to them, whatever that may be personally, and then all of a sudden is, well, damn, I didn't know it was like that, having a gay son or something or whatever. And it's real. And one of my pet peeves when people make, in bold letters on steroids, this is the right thing, and they don't know. So Mayana, how do you feel about ERGs and all that?
Well, to jump on what Bryce said, I definitely believe that ERGs can be used to educate, not just the members that are part of the ERGs, but employees that are not part of the ERGs, right? I also believe that ERGs can be strategically used by corporations to show just how diverse they are, when it comes to how the company is moving in that direction. But most importantly, what I've learned is that ERGs can be a strategic tool to the business units. So meaning that if the business units have a specific goal that they need to meet, what you can do as an ERG is align yourself with the goals of the company. That way you can be effective in what's happening, because now you are targeting, you're starting from up down, not starting from down up. So in my opinion, I think ERGs are significantly important. They're not a party crew, right? It's not just happy hours and drinks, but I think that ERGs can be strategic to the foundation and the building of the business units, to not only make money, but also to show that we need people and we need diverse people to make this company going. So that's how I look at ERGs.
So Shanita, in that sense, love your comments on what they both said, but also it's also a way then to attract and keep good talent at the company then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with what has already been said, but I also think, and I don't want to generalize, let me just speak from my perspective. So the first in my family to go to college, to get a degree, first in my family to work for, Fortune 100 company, and, to not, so those ERGs or affinity groups, they were helpful to me because it gave me a safe place to go to like decode things that were said by, my white colleagues. I'm like, I don't really know what they mean by that. So let me go to these folks over in this ERGs to help me kind of understand like how to really navigate these environments. And so from that perspective, I think they do serve a useful purpose. Now, if that's the only thing that employees are doing, like just participate in the ERGs, I think that can be limiting. But I think, as a way to build community, to make people feel as if they are part of the organization, they do serve a purpose. Last thing, so when I was working at GE, they would have these ERGs for like every group you think about, there's an ERG for. And so the one for African Americans, there used to be these annual conferences that they would have in DC. And I attended one, and the president, not just of the medical systems business, but of GE, he showed up and presented. And I was like, wow. And so that made such a huge impression upon somebody like me. And I think, many of my colleagues that were there, that we have the president of the company coming to this conference to show in his being, in his presence, in his conversation, how important he thinks we are to the organization. So
yeah, that's brilliant. I compare a lot of things to sports, and if the player knows that the coach trusts him and is 100% behind him, nothing else matters. They'll do anything for that coach. And there's a similarity to that, and it's not even that hard, to be that type of leader and stuff. In fact, I had an interview with the CEO. It's probably been several months now, and he said, I'm having the best time ever being a CEO because I can be as vulnerable as I ever was, and I don't have to pretend to know everything anymore.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I thought, what a great way to be. And then you have to trust your people
right.
to do stuff. So it's pretty cool. So we've kind of segued into and talked a little bit about what I wanted to ask now is, it's actually taken decades for leaders, entrepreneurs to realize that doing something that's impactful socially, environmentally for people is, who would have thought, actually good for business in all ways, and good for attracting and keeping talent, like we talked about. So I'd love to ask you why, or what do you think the role is of, if you will, leaders who care with respect to taking care of the financial, the physical, and the mental well-being of their employees? Diana, you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a very good question, because it's more evident, especially let me just harp on the mental well-being part of things, right? It's more evident that that is an issue, that's an area that has been overlooked, but yet it's a very crucial area because in order for me to come to work, I have to be mentally all together. You know, it takes a lot to put it all together, right? And show up and then be present. So, you know, with these business leaders, you know, the role they play in making sure that they've put aside finances to take care of that or resources to take care of that. That's very important. It shows that number one, they care about the employees' well-being. For example, at our company, we have an app where, well, I'm sure a lot of companies have it, but you're able to call through your insurance company and get counseling, and they pay for like the 3 first sessions for free, so that we can test drive, you know, what therapist you like. That's crucial, you know, that's you showing that you care about your employees. Yes, it's money coming out of your pocket, but in the long run, having mentally stable, diverse employees is good for business, but it's also good for just being a company that cares. You know, it's not just about the numbers, but I want to work for a company that cares about me and the well-being of myself when I'm in the building and when I'm out of the building. So very crucial. Very
Yeah,
crucial.
great point. And not to correct, but to add to, it's not money spent, it's actually an investment made
Yeah.
into them. And the good ones really see that. You'll make it back in a heartbeat with morale and performance and affecting other people. It's a no-brainer. So great point. Shanita.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, you know, we've touched on this before, but, you know, the role of the leader of these organizations is to really set the tone for DEI by embodying it in all that they do. I think Maina had said this before. You can tell, at least I can tell to a certain degree, and I think many employees can tell, you know, the extent to which the organization and leaders truly believe in DEI, or is this just a facade that they're putting up just to rubber stamp something? And so the ways in which the leader really does set the tone carries through the entire organization. And then the other piece is around something I said earlier about diversity, equity, inclusion not being something that's separate, but a part of. When you think about the strategy, when you think about growing your business, when you think about developing partnerships, when you think about the initiatives, are you thinking holistically about how DEI fits into all of that? And leaders, they do need to help, the folks throughout the organization understand that this is a mind shift. This is where we're shifting our values to be inclusive of DEI and all that we do. So it's a big job, but I think that organizations that really do take on that mindset, I think, Mark, you said it, like, you will have the most loyal employees. I mean, like, really, who will always just go above and beyond. When employees feel cared for, when they feel seen, when they feel as if they are part of the organization, they will just do miles above and beyond whatever, the direct manager asked them to do. So leadership has to truly believe it and set that tone for the entire organization to follow.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And Mayanne, I remember, I'm Bryce. I remember that when I was first at Deloitte, and one of the clients, and I was no visionary, but one of the clients just had, white men in all the same industry on the board. And I was even more sarcastic back then than I am now, and said stupid things, but I just told them what I said. And I said, I don't understand why you have everybody from the same industry, and it's retail. When you want to get a woman's opinion on what's going on there, and it was like at that point, well, this is how we do it. And I said, well, that's kind of dumb. You do it also. It took a long time to get to that point. But Bryce, what's your thoughts on that?
I think to circle back earlier in the conversation, about at this point, 2020 summer, I think that what leaders who want to make sure that their employees know they care, right? We had conversations similar to Mayanne as far as the town hall kind of things. And what I think that did for a lot of companies is expose them in a way of, now people are watching. right? I think that I can speak for me as an African-American woman. I had my own thoughts about, what was and what's being done within companies and DEI initiatives and things like that. But what 2020 did was it made companies promise a lot of things, right? And a lot of promises have been made. The thing now becomes, now people are watching. So they really are, right? And so they can now say, hey, you said this 2 years ago at this point, come up this summer. What had I still feel the same, right? I'm still feeling unseen. You said these things, right? And so the big thing is for leaders to not, for this not to become performative, right? Because I think that is a part of the, great resignation. I think people are thinking about that. They're thinking, okay, all these things were going on racially in all these different, groups. All these things were promised within companies. So now let's see what you do. And I think that some companies have really latched on, to Shanita's point, have a mind shift, right? You can tell the differences. You can tell their hiring practice. You can tell how they're thinking about how they interact with one another. And then a good bit of companies have not. And so the pandemic, if it has done nothing for all of us, has given us time to slow down and think, right? And notice, right? Because sometimes when you're in the rush of things, you hear promises and then you're like, I have to go get this report done. You're not thinking about it, but the town halls and all the things that were said in all these different companies' emails, people of color, people of different minorities, people are watching. And so if you want to be a leader who cares, I would think about, what did we say we were going to do?
Yeah, great point. You brought up COVID and Mother Nature. I don't know if she's white, black, or whatever that she is, but Mother Nature is pretty pissed off over the last couple of years, and she just said, "Look, if I'm going to smack you on the head with so many things, if you don't get it this time, forget it." I mean, everything, and on top of that, technology is moving 60 million miles per hour and stuff. And so I want to ask you if you think has been, for lack of a better word, an awakening during this time. And I also want to throw in there, because you just made me think about it. We just celebrated Martin Luther King Day. And also, amazingly enough, one of my favorite actors just died, and that was Sidney Poitier. And so how all this put together, like a lot of people have died recently. Has there been an awakening? Are people seeing all this? And I remember Sidney Poitier used to put himself in positions of a doctor, this and that. It's kind of like to see her movement now, put her in positions so it looks like you can make it there. Has there been an awakening? Do you see there's been an awakening? Shanita, you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love what Bryce had to say, with the great resignation. I think COVID it changed everything. I mean, it changed not only how we work, how we live, our relationships, although, I think most of us didn't necessarily miss commuting to and from work, we did miss, the hugs and being able to touch and feel our friends and family in person. And so it did wake us up to what is really important to us, like what gives us value, what makes us happy. And then, like Bryce said, we were all kind of sitting at home and watching these things on TV, and it was like, what? So we did, and I think we still do have this time on our hands to be more reflective, to be more contemplative, to actually watch, right? Are the employers doing what they said they were going to do? And if not, people are making different decisions. They're making different decisions. They're saying, I don't have to stay here. I can change my life. I can go move to another place. I can, widen my family network and go, stay in my mom's or my father's basement for a few years until I can figure out my best next step. So I think it should be a call to employers to really, walk the talk that employees are asking for moving forward.
Yeah, no doubt. And consumers are too, at the same time, who they buy from. So, Maya, do you have same thoughts?
Yeah, same thoughts here. Definitely COVID has shown us that this is not just an American problem or Europe problem or African problem. This was a world problem. The entire world got hit with the same thing at the same time. To me, that's profound. Number two, I think it made us realize that we're all human, whether you're white or black or Indian or Hispanic, death comes to all. I'm sorry to say it that way, but it's the truth, right? So it actually woke us up to say that, what's more important? Like, am I going to sit and bicker with you because I eat tacos and you eat pizza? No, we're all human. We're all human beings at the end of the day, right? And what exactly are we fighting about? What are we still holding to? Why are we still living in the past? What roots of hate do we have to get rid of? What's really inside of our hearts? What generational things do we have to break? Like, it really, honestly, for me, it shifted my entire thinking. And like Shanita said, it's also when it comes to the professional part of things. I mean, I'm willing to pick up my computer and go to Mexico with my kids right now and do virtual school and work from there. Why not? I can do that. It's no longer me overthinking things now. It's more flexibility. It's now even made me even realize there was a lot of excuses of what we could not do. And then when we got shut in, we had to do it. And we had to be innovative and we had to be creative, right? So when it comes to these corporations as well, like Bryce said, okay, we're making these promises. If you don't make these promises, I'm seeing the companies who are hiring for DNI, I don't know, VP and DNI, like these new positions are being created all of a sudden, So yeah, they really need to live up to what they're saying, because there is a shift and there's no longer that fear that I have to be bound here because, this is my life. Oh no, life came and shifted for us. So definitely there was an awakening.
Yeah, you're all 100% right. In fact, you know, leaders of companies have found that talent is asking questions. We do this all the time. Talent, they're not just saying, do you care about me, or do you have an open door policy? They're actually asking, okay, well, you have diversity. Say you're interested in diversity. Can you tell me what that means? What programs do you have? Are those programs active? Why did you do them? People are asking those. And I would say on the other side, for leadership companies, they're finding some advantages too, because it used to be that they had to hire within certain geographies, but now they can get even better people in other places to work remote and do stuff too, which never really happened before because most people had to go to the office. So the more that it's what we call an omni-win for everybody, the more it'll be better for everybody. And so looking forward to that. Bryce, to end off this part of it, one client told me about a quarter of the way through 2021, he was describing the year 2020. He said, Mark, the year has flown by slowly. And I thought that was kind of sweet and sour type of deal in a way. And I understood it. And then 2021 kind of flew by. And here we are. It's almost one blend. And when you talk to people and say, when did I last see you? Well, let's go back 2 years and go that way. It's like so many strange things. So what I'm getting to is, and Bryce, maybe you can start, is what are you most grateful for with all this that's gone on? And what are you most hopeful for?
I can say I'm most grateful. I value my time in a different kind of way. I think being a mother, right? I realized pre-pandemic how little time I spent with my boys, not intentionally, right? But they're up early. We're running here, we're running there. Okay, dropping you off. Okay, you're home. Okay, I'm working. You have practices. Okay, we're eating dinner together, bed, and repeat, right? But for me, living in right outside of the DC area, they were home for 18 months. They were here every single day. My grocery bill remembers they were here every single day. But I just realized how much I liked them. I didn't like them, but it was like, pretty good guys. Like I enjoyed, I just didn't, it gave me time to think and to work on, to Mayena's point, generational curses, and to get into therapy, and just to think, to slow down, to really think, is this real? Am I really headed the right way? Am I making the decisions I would like to make? Or are they made because I'm in a hurry, right? And so that for me has been the greatest gift. And also realizing that be grateful for the people in your life because they can be here today and gone tomorrow. Unfortunately, I mean, in a way that I think we all kind of say that, but we don't really feel it. And now we feel it. Like, okay, I need to be appreciative of this, right, in this time. So that's what I'm most grateful for.
And what are you most hopeful for?
Hopeful for maybe to get outside soon. And I think that the world has shifted in such amazing ways, right? There's been a lot of things that have come to the surface that have been troubling. But I also think that people are hopeful, and I think that people are living their dreams, and just, you know, you're finding people have so many talents that they never want to talk about, right? Or their interests. So I just am hopeful that people keep doing what we don't. I'm hopeful that we're headed in that direction, and we're not going to sink back to what we were pre-pandemic at all.
Awesome. Mayanna, grateful and hopeful?
Grateful for the opportunity to be where I'm at right now, which is just being me, you know. Grateful for the fact that I've come to realize through this pandemic that it's okay to be me. Like, I don't have to put on a face. I don't have to prepare myself before I enter the building. And guess what? There is no building. So I can put on a coat with sweatpants and nobody will know. So I love it. But yeah, just really being me, spending time with my children as well. You know, same thing with Bryce. It was the rat race every day, morning, you know, getting them ready, going out, coming back home, the same thing. And now we actually can lay on the carpet and play video games, you know, when we need to just break away from things, you know. Yeah. And just appreciate family a little bit more. So this has been a good thing. It's been a good thing for me personally. It's been a good thing for me professionally. And I think it's been a good thing for the world, to be honest with you. So
is that the hopeful part? It's a good thing for the world?
It's a good thing for the world, because because in order for change to happen, we had to really be awakened. Now, mind you, we've been talking about this issue for many years, right? But I think the core got shook. So that means to me, hope is there. There's still hope for change, and I see it coming. So, yeah.
And Shanita.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've said it a number of times here, but I am really grateful for this broader awakening, right? I think there's some of us who were already woke or awakened, but I think it's broader across different cultural groups, age groups, disciplines. And it's hard, right? It's like, you know, we still haven't figured it out, but people want to, they want to. And that I'm so grateful for that. And I hope that momentum continues, because this is not something that we're going to be able to solve this year, next year, 5 years. It is something that we have to continue to work on throughout our entire lives. And I hope we have the stamina to maintain that.
And hopefully we don't have short memories.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. We need to remember these lessons.
Well, man, Sarah couldn't have picked better leaders of care. So way to go, you guys. And it's an honor to have this conversation with you and learn from you. And let's keep making a difference together.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mark.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Mark.